Chicos, buenas tardes. ¿Cómo están? ¿Todos bien? You can say yes. You can use the green button. Verde. ¿Todos bien? Excelente. Okay. Let's start class today. We do not have a quiz today. Actually, you don't have quizzes anymore. As you can see on the screen, we have our syllabus. I'm showing you the syllabus. See if I can show you better. Hoy es lunes 16 de noviembre y esta semana tenemos discusión cultural de Cuba, capítulo 9 en el libro de texto capítulo 9. Please notice that here it is, Cuba. Our last chapter in this course is chapter 9. Cuba, Puerto Rico, República Dominicana es de viaje por el Caribe. That's the title of this chapter, de viaje por el Caribe. Y tenemos este viernes la discusión cultural y tenemos tarea 2 semanas más. Lunes 16, tarea para el viernes y 20 de noviembre y tarea para, here it is, tarea para el 20 de noviembre y tarea para el viernes 27 de noviembre. ¿Ok? Viernes 20 y viernes 27 de noviembre hay tarea. I know next week will be Día de Acción de Gracias, Día de Dar Gracias. Jueves, Día de Dar Gracias, Thanksgiving Day, but you have homework available and it's been open. So again, you can complete it ahead of time if you need to. In case you have a lot of things happening on Thanksgiving, complete it earlier. Okay, you have time to do that. Examen de composición en Blackboard. I will explain you in a moment. I will show you these 2 assignments in Blackboard just to make sure that we know what we're doing. Okay? Let's see. I can just take you there. Let me share my Blackboard screen. No, I don't have my Blackboard opened. All right, let's go to our class. Course content, modules. So we are done with module 1, we're done with module 2, module 3, module 4. We are in our last module, El Caribe, Cuba, Puerto Rico, República Dominicana. So the assignments are here. Cultural assignment due this week is Friday, 11/20th. It's your cultural assignment. Don't forget that when you record your video, you are to copy the link into Blackboard. Copy the link here and paste your video link in this assignment when you join this. Okay, that's this Friday, 20 de noviembre. And then composición final, okay. Composición final is already in Blackboard, but you cannot start it yet until the week of Noviembre 23, 23rd of November. That's when I will post the topics for you to create your composition. Now this time, the final composition is not going to be just a paragraph writing. There are instructions that you need to read and complete this Padlet. Okay, everybody's looking with me to Blackboard? Can you say with the green, verde, that you're looking at it with me? Thank you. So composición, it's going to be, as you can see, it's going to be a Padlet. And I've never done Padlets with this class before, so I don't know if you've done them before. But there's a link here that you are to create an account. It's a Padlet. In a Padlet, I've attached one for you to see my family on it. This is an activity I did with my students in Spanish 1. And so you post pictures and then a paragraph under each picture. And your writing will be under the picture. Now this is about the family because that was Spanish 1. Your topics are going to be from this course Spanish 2. Of course, they're going to be about the last 2 or 3 chapters we've had, because the last composition you completed was for the first 2 chapters or 3 chapters that we've had in this course. We've had 5 chapters. So this last composition is going to be about the last 2 chapters, chapter 8, chapter 9. But you can include words that you have learned all the way from Spanish 1, of course. This is a writing, and you will use, and I've set up, information on how you will write this composition. I think this is the rubric. Yes, you can click on the rubric right now and look at the instructions. The only thing is you don't have the topics that I want you to write, so that's why you cannot write it yet. But you'll have a whole week because, as you can see, I will post it on Monday, and then you'll have all the week through November the 27th to finish it, to complete it. Complete your writing, post your pictures, and complete your writing, okay? And you can look at the example that I have there in my family Padlet. You can look at the example to see what I did with the previous class or previous course. I do want you to be conscious that I expect to find the chapter vocabulario and the chapter objectives, the grammar structures we have learned. So if you start getting words and sentences that had nothing to do with this chapter that we're studying, then you're going to get a bad grade, because I expect to see what we're learning in this writing composition. That's what I'm correcting. That's what I'm checking on. So you should be using your own assignments that you've had for homework to prepare this composition. We complete homework every day with vocabulario that we learn and with grammar structures. I expect to find those verbs and conjugations that we're learning in your writing. So use your previous activities. Use the activities we do in class, the ones from the textbook, so you can find ideas on what you want to write. You cannot just, copy and translate in Google, because I will immediately know that this is a translation from Google. Google will use words that we're not using in our chapter vocabulario. And that's how I easily tell when this has been translated, okay? Again, you can start by reading the instructions, and then on Monday, the 23rd, then you can get it ready. So that's the 2 assignments that we have on top of your regular homework, weekly homework, due on Fridays. I do have a final extra points active assignment here that you can go ahead and, let's see if I can get rid of this. Well, let's go back. You can click on this last one, and that's just completing the course evaluation, okay? You can get 10 extra points on your final test if you like to do this. And there's a submission date that you need to have. So again, you can read these instructions later and start working on it. But that's an opportunity for you to get extra points on your final exam, which I've said last week, your final exam will only cover chapter 9. Now, chapter 9 is packed. There's a lot of stuff that we learned in chapter 9, so you got to take the time to study and prepare before you complete your exam. Final exam will be similar to this composition. It'll be open on Monday. and it's due. I will probably give it to you, give you like 2-3 days for you to complete it. And but it'll be in Respondo's lockdown browser and Blackboard, and it'll start on the week of the final examinations, so you can complete it the day you would like to before it's due. Okay. Preguntas, chicos? Are there any questions? Okay, I'm trying to listen to someone. I think someone is trying to say something, but I can't understand what you're saying. I just hear me. Can somebody else say something to see if it's not me and it's the other person? Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so whoever is trying to talk to me, something is wrong with your microphone maybe, because I only hear feedback, but I don't hear what you're trying to say. Maybe you can type it in the chat for me if you like to. Anybody else has questions? You can always email me with questions too, but it's best to talk, in person, in Zoom. If you like to do Zoom, you can also talk to me.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
About the composition, do we have to take pictures?
Yes, the assignment has to include pictures, and in the instructions it says how many pictures, probably like 5 pictures, and they don't have to be real pictures. You can select pictures from the internet if you like to, but some people would choose real pictures. That's great. If you cannot find a real picture in your own album, you can use a different picture. Okay, it doesn't have to be real pictures, but it has to be pictures that show or depict what you're saying in your writing.
Okay.
Somebody else has a question? No? Okay, well, let's get to the lesson today. And we're going to talk about the indirect object pronouns, which you have already learned before in Spanish 1, and then also in Spanish 2, you also use them. But we're going to review them and use them in a different way today, different form. I do want to recall to you what indirect object pronouns are. Indirect object pronouns, when we use indirect object pronouns, we first learned them in Spanish 1 when we talked about ella se llama. For example, if you want to introduce your friend, ella, my friend, I would say ella se llama. Or let me point at this pretty picture here, Alexis. Ella se llama Alexis. Okay? You started learning those pronouns there. Then you learned me gusta, te gusta, and I can say Alexis le gusta los mariscos. Le gustan los mariscos. Le, I'm using the pronoun le, that's indirect object pronoun because it's not me. It's not me I'm talking about. I'm talking about her. Le, it's the pronoun for indirect object pronouns, for indirect object for her. Le gustan los mariscos. And I'm saying le gustan because I don't like them. No me gustan los mariscos. No me gusta la comida del mar. Okay, so I'm going to say that Alexis likes seafood. She may not, but I'm just choosing her as an example. Okay, so those are the indirect object pronouns. In a sentence, let's go back to the top of my PowerPoint. In a sentence, a sentence has a subject, a verb, and then you may have articles in the sentence. Sorry, I'm keep stopping this because it keeps getting rid of my participants box, and I don't want that. So, in the sentence, you may have again a subject. The subject is who performs the action. Okay, the subject is always who performs the action. But in a sentence, you may also have a verb. The articles are needed in the sentence also. And then you may have a direct object, which we'll learn in chapter 7 in this course. And then you may have an indirect object, which is for who the action is performed. Direct object, the subject performs the action. The direct object tells you what is doing, what's happening. But the indirect object tells you for who this action is performed. So again, these are grammar rules we learned, and it's important that we understand them in order to use them in the sentence, in the grammar, you know, in when we're structuring sentences. So here's the sentence structure. You have a subject. Silvia está hablando. Silvia is the subject. She performs the action. Está hablando is talking. This is the present progressive tense, verb tense. Present progressive uses ando and yendo, as you remembered, we talked about this. Silvia is talking. Silvia está hablando. So there's no direct object, there's no indirect object in this first sentence that I'm showing you. But there is a subject, right? The subject is Silvia. Now, if you look at the second sentence, yo compré el sombrero. Here, the subject is yo. Yo compré el sombrero. I don't have a hat today. Compré, the conjugation of the verb tells you who performs the action. Sorry, I marked with an error. The conjugation of the verb here, compré, tells you who performed the action, and it is yo, right? Because I already explained, yo compré el sombrero. But what did I buy? There is your direct object that answers what. What did I buy? Sombrero. Compré is your verb, sombrero is your direct object. So in the subject, we may have more than 3 nouns. The first noun is yo. The second noun here is sombrero. Now that we're going to look at the indirect object, the last sentence here, it's going to tell you. Compré is your verb. And look at the ending of the verb again. Compré, it's telling you that subject is yo. Looking at the verb, you know who the subject is. The ending e tells you is yo, right? So yo compré, but in front of compré, you have a direct object pronoun. And we learned those, like I said, in chapter 7. We learned that lo is for a masculine direct object. La is for a feminine direct object. So the direct object here is not shown, right? But we know it's a masculine direct object. Now, if you look at the previous sentence, you know I'm talking about el sombrero. You know that sombrero is the direct object, is masculine. So we're using lo, right? Lo, because it's sombrero. Lo compré, I bought it. For who? Para Julieta. Look at para here. Para is just saying to you for who? Para Julieta. Now I'm using the indirect object, which is, indirect object is Julieta. It's for who did I buy it? Okay? Preguntas so far? Everybody's understanding what I'm saying? Verde means, yes, there are questions. Rojo means there's no questions. Thank you, Aline. Thank you, Kayla. Brandon, Alexin Cannon, somebody else, Candle, let me know with your red button. No, there are no preguntas. Let me know because I need to know that you're here. We're gonna a minute later, you're all gonna participate in this lesson because we gotta learn. We participate. We learn better by participating, guys. Okay, so again, we're learning about the indirect object in the sentence, in the grammar sentences. Direct objects. Direct objects, here it is. It's showing you, it's just a review of direct object, which I already had. Right? The direct object always answers the questions who, for who, or what. No, not for whom. Whom did it? Or what? Okay? Answers. But most of the times it's going to be a what. Feminine or masculine. Okay? Boleto. Here on the sentence is boleto. So the gender is masculine. If it's silla, will be feminine, right? I will be using feminine, but it's boleto is masculine. Margarita compró un boleto de avión. Here's the subject, Margarita. Margarita is your subject. Okay, she performed the action. Notice how the conjugation of the verb changed. It's not compré anymore because it's not yo anymore. It is ella. Ella compró. Ella, the conjugation ella is compró. She bought it. She bought one ticket. What kind of ticket? A plane ticket. Un boleto de avión. Notice how we have 1, 2, 3 different nouns in the sentence. So again, it's important that when we're reading, we are able to identify every word. We should be able to identify the subject by looking at the verb. We identify that the subject is ella, Margarita. And then we should be able to identify what answers the direct object. Boleto de avión. What kind of ticket? Avión. Ticket, plane ticket. Now, the bottom sentence says, lo compró hace 2 días. She bought it. She, it's in the answer, she, Margarita, it's in the verb. She bought it. Lo. I'm not using boleto anymore. She bought it 2 days ago. If somebody comes in and says, she bought what? Well, we that have been listening to the lesson right now, we understand we're talking about boleto. But if somebody is just joining us, we not understand that we're talking about boleto because they didn't hear it. But we're talking about boleto. Lo compró hace 2 días. She bought it 2 days ago. Hace 2 días. And we learned that hace means some time ago. 2 días. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Because indirect object, like I said, we've learned this in previous class. However, doesn't mean that we might still need help in using this indirect object. So here it is, the indirect object, estructura 1, the concept of indirect objects. It says, observe the sentence, okay? The following sentence. Margarita is the subject, compró is the verb, le is the indirect object pronoun, direct object is boleto. For who? For su novio. So in English, it's saying Margarita, Margarita, him bought one ticket to her boyfriend. It doesn't sound correct in English, right? But if you translate it literally, if you put it in Google, that's what it's going to do. It's going to tell you Margarita, him bought one ticket to her boyfriend. Word order is different in English and Spanish, right? In English, you don't need him in front of the verb compró. In English, you would simply say Margarita bought one ticket to her boyfriend. That's how you would say it in English. Margarita bought one ticket to her boyfriend. But in Spanish, you need him in front of the verb. That's the indirect object pronoun. And you need to use that indirect object pronoun in front of the verb. It's always going to be in front of the verb, in front of the conjugated verb. That means you have to conjugate the verb. And who performs the action? That's who the conjugation is. That's the ending, the subject ending you're going to add to the verb. Now that we're learning a lot of the items in the sentence, I see that some students, it may not be in this class, but I see that sometimes students forget to conjugate correctly the verb. We should not forget to conjugate correct the verb, okay? So le is the indirect object that agrees with for whom? For whom is this ticket that she bought? For her boyfriend. Therefore, we're using le because it agrees with boyfriend, novio, le. If it was me, then it wouldn't be for her boyfriend, it would be for me, right? Because me is the pronoun for me, yo. But she is not buying me a ticket, she's buying her boyfriend. So she's using Margarita bought him a ticket. Okay? Now, let's see how this can also change. And look at the indirect object pronouns, because these are going to be added before the conjugated verb, or they can, well, they will not replace the indirect object. They will just agree within the indirect object pronoun. That's the difference between the direct object pronouns. The direct object pronouns, me, te, lo, la. If you remember, we learned lo, la. Direct object pronouns, they were lo, la. Here, instead of le, they were lo for masculine noun and la for feminine nouns. And lo, la, these direct object pronouns, they replace the direct object. When you don't want to talk about the ticket, you would just replace it with lo. Lo compró. She bought it. It, in English, replaces ticket. In Spanish, it will be lo instead of it, or la instead of it. But now we're learning indirect object pronouns, and these indirect object pronouns must be used before the conjugated verb. Again, these are rules and that we must learn. By the way, I think, yeah, I am recording this session so I can put it in the announcements or in Blackboard. But me, it's referring to me, yo. She's buying me a ticket, me compró. If I use te, I would say she bought you, te compró. She bought you, te compró. If I use le, I'm going to say she bought him. Notice it's saying here him. She bought him a ticket. Him or her. Nos will be she bought us a ticket. Nos compró. You notice how the conjugation compró is not changing, because again, it's the same subject. Margarita buying the ticket, not me. So with conjugation of the verb, we have to keep to be compró, because ella, she bought it. Os compró, les compró. Who did she buy this to? Okay, so I'm gonna use text box here saying if she bought the ticket for me could be yo, would be yo, right? But if she bought you a ticket, who is you? Tú, right? So the te pronoun can be used for you, te, for tú. Now the le pronoun, when it says here for you, for her, for him, this le pronoun can be used, move this. This le pronoun can be used for either ella. It could also be used for a mi amiga. Or I could also put an I in front of it. A mi amiga. She bought a mi amiga, to my friend. In English, you don't say she bought to my friend. You say she bought my friend. But in Spanish, you can use I in front of mi amiga to specify for whom was this ticket. A mi amiga. Le compró a mi amiga. It could be a mi amigo. Le compró a mi amigo. She bought my friend a ticket. It could also be a person's name. A mi hermano. My brother. She bought my brother a ticket. A mi hermano. Again, I'm showing you this because in the sentences that you see in your activities, you are most likely going to see a lot of this there. You most likely will be seeing nouns like this. Le compró un boleto a mi hermano, a mi papá. It could also be she bought a ticket a mi profesor. You can use any noun to say, any person, to say she bought a ticket for somebody else. But it has to be either him or her. Okay? That's the le pronoun. The nos, well, you know that's for us, right? And who is us? Well, who's us could be a nosotros, or it could also be a mi hermana y a mí. To my sister. Margarita bought a ticket to my sister and to me. Instead of saying to us, she bought a ticket to us, I can say, Margarita bought a ticket for my sister and me. And that's saying us, but I'm saying my sister and me. So I'm using different words, but it's still us, okay? So the same thing happens with Liz here. Margarita bought a ticket to them. It would be Les, it would be a ellos. She bought a ticket to them, a ellos. Or Margarita could be, Margarita bought a ticket, Margarita compró un boleto a sus, bought a ticket for her cousins, a sus primos. Margarita compró un boleto a sus, to her cousins, to her, los padres de su amiga. Notice how the sentence can be written different ways, but it's still to them. Los padres de sus amigas, de su amiga, to the parents of her friend. Margarita bought a ticket to her parents of her friend. Compró un boleto a los padres de su amiga. So again, it's important that we understand how these indirect object pronouns are used. For whom. And all of these nouns that I've typed in can be in your activities, in your test, and you need to make sure you understand what they mean in order to figure out which indirect object you are going to use. Preguntas so far? Rojo means no, no tengo preguntas. Verde means sí, tengo preguntas. No hay, Frankie says no, no hay preguntas. Okay, no hay preguntas. I don't see any more. Okay, let's see. Good that we're understanding what to do. Expect to see good grades, guys, when you're doing the test. You're paying attention right now. So expect to see good grades. Please take time to make notes and understand this. Indirect object pronouns can be a noun or a pronoun that indirectly receives the action of the verb. Here it is, the information of what the indirect object pronoun is. It tells for whom the action of the verb is performed. For who are you doing this action? Notice the sentences. A mi mamá. It says here, a mi mamá. Well, mamá, not a mi mamá. Mamá llama todos los días. Whom does she call? Mamá llama todos los días. And it's in underline, it says a nosotros. So because she's calling us every day, we will say it in Spanish. We will say it this way. Mamá nos. Again, the indirect object pronoun goes in front of the conjugated verb. Nos llama todos los días. This is a different way to say mom calls every day. Mom calls us every day. We're saying it this way. Mamá nos llama todos los días. Mario compró un boleto para ella. It's not Margarita anymore. Mario compró un boleto para ella. For whom? For her. So Mario bought a ticket for her. In Spanish, we would say, he bought her a ticket. Le compró un boleto. He, it's implied when you looked at the verb conjugation. Remember I showed you? The verb conjugation tells you who performs the action. And that's either he or she. The conjugation O with an accent is either he or she. So, Mario le compró un boleto. And again,
Mama on nosotros?
I'm sorry?
Why is Mama on nosotros instead of like?
Why is Mario what? I can't hear the last.
Why is Mama nosotros instead of like?
Oh, you mean the previous sentence, Mama?
Yeah.
And nosotros? Mom calls us every day. It's
Okay.
saying here that mom calls us. Mom is performed the action, but for whom? For us. So she's calling us, okay? And then the last sentence is saying Mario bought a ticket for her. Mario performs the action, but the ticket is for her. So again, very important to understand this. Indirect object tells you for who. Memorize it just like I'm explaining. The subject performs the action. The direct object, direct or direct object, tells you what. What did he do? Or what did he buy? He bought a ticket. That's your direct object. And the indirect object, which is what we're learning today or reviewing today, tells you for who. For who was this action? Well, for her. Right? That's what we're learning today, for her. These reviews help us understand better the sentence. Okay, I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you an activity. Where's the activity here? Placement of direct object pronouns. Oh, this is just talking about the placement, which I've already mentioned. The direct object, indirect object pronouns, they are placed before the conjugated verb, okay? That's what I've mentioned before. Before the conjugated verb. And also attached to the end of the infinitivo. So there's a different way we can also use this indirect object. We can also attach it to the verb, but the verb cannot be, well, yeah, it could be, in this case, it could be conjugated or non-conjugated. In this case, this sentence has two direct objects. Let me get the drawing. For example, it says, le voy a dar el boleto. Le voy. Voy is telling you who is performing the action. Yo, because this conjugation is yo. Yo voy. Yo voy. What am I going to do? I'm going to give the ticket to her. Voy. Le is telling you to whom are you giving it? To her. And what am I giving her? That's your direct object, el boleto. Now you can also attach it like it's showing there, but you also only attach it. Remember, we learned this before since the very beginning when we learned in chapter 5, reflexive verbs. When you have two verbs next to each other, you can attach the pronoun, either reflexive pronoun, in this case is indirect object pronoun. It can be attached, but it has to be attached to the infinitive verb. It cannot be attached to the first verb, only to the second verb, okay? I'm not looking at myself and I don't see which. The second verb. I don't even know which one is my first here when I point to you, but it has to be attached to the second verb only, okay? That's why it's shown here. The pronoun is attached to the second verb. Voy a darle un boleto. And you may see some examples in your activities today or this third Friday when you have the homework due, that the pronouns would be attached to the second one. Now, if you attach it to the second one, you cannot include it in front. You cannot type it here in front. You cannot have it in both places. You can only attach it to the second verb or place it in front of the conjugated verb. Here's the conjugated verb. Again, this is a rule we've learned before. We've talked about it before. So I hope by now you already remembered these rules because we have reviewed them before. We've learned them in previous chapters. See what the other slide I have. I'm looking for the activity. It's not shown here. This is more about the direct object pronouns. By now, we're at the end of the course in Spanish too. By now, you know we've learned a lot. And you can see how the direct object pronouns can be used. And it can be, like I said before, it can be attached to the second verb when you have to. But notice this example they're showing us here. Háblale. This is a one word. Actually, this is an affirmative command. Remember, we learned commands back in Spanish 1 in your chapter 4. I'm teaching Spanish 1, that's why I know where exactly you learned this. You learned it in Spanish 1 in chapter 4 when you learned about the house. You also learned commands. You learned that you give commands to your pets or to your children or to your best friends. If you have best friends, you give them commands or you give them instructions. change the word command and say you give them an instruction, right? You give directions, commands by using a conjugated verb in the third person. That's how you give commands. Habla. Instead of saying ella habla, you say habla by itself, habla, and you're giving me a command to say talk. But you can say talk to me, and you say háblame, talk to me, háblame. Instead of saying háblale here, because háblale means talk to her. But if you say to me háblame, probably your mom, right? She would be telling you háblame, like talk to me, háblame. So that's a command, háblame, talk to me. If it's us, you would say háblanos, talk to us, háblanos. And this other one here, dame, this is a command to say give me. You're using the direct object also to say give me. Da, it's the conjugation of the verb dar. Dar is the verb to give, dar. But when you conjugate it, you drop the AR and you say doy to say I give, yo. Or you say tú das, right? That's the subject tú. Tú das dinero. But the third person, ella da, she gives money to church. Ella da dinero. Or él da dinero. That's how we conjugate to the third subject in present tense. But if you conjugate the verbs to the third subject by this, you can also use them as a command or as instructions or as directions and say da, give. So da means give. It's a command, me telling you, give money, da dinero. Here saying, give me the papers. That's what the sentence here says. Dame los papeles, give me the papers. You can also say, danos, give us the paper, danos los papeles. Or give, dales, give them, dales los papeles. Again, all these pronouns tell you for whom this action is performed. Okay? But you can also use them with a negative command. Negatives go before the indirect object. That's one more rule you have to learn. When you want to make the sentence negative, you always, a rule that we already learned, and we know, every time you make the sentence negative, the negative no always goes in front of the conjugated verb, right? So, but now you have an indirect object pronoun also in front of the verb. So you have to know which one goes first in the word order sentence. No goes first, and then le, and then the verb, okay? No, the negative, le is the indirect object pronoun, and then you conjugated verb. No le hables, do not talk to whoever this person is, do not talk to. No le hables. Or no me des, do not give me. No me des. I can also change this me and say no les, do not give them the papers. Or no nos, or do not give us. No nos des. Or I'm gonna say do not give her. No le des los papeles. Do not give her, or do not give him. No le des. Depending on who the subject is, the action performed to, that's who we use. Okay. ¿Preguntas? No. Rojo means no hay preguntas. Verde means hay preguntas. I want to see how everyone tells me no hay preguntas. Where are my students? Students, answer with no hay preguntas. Rojo. You know your rojo green button or red button, you can find it under your participants box. If you have a question, you use verde. If you don't have questions, you use rojo. That means you are good, that you understood what we're doing. There's no questions. No? All right, let's look at the activity. Let's look at the activity in the book, in the textbook. Actually, I'm going to I'm going to show you in the book. In the book, show you the activity. Let's look at one of your activities of homework this week. Let's look at some of the activities that you have for this week. See how you are going to complete this homework assignment. It's saying here, so when the activities like this in your homework show you, when the activities in your homework show you a conversation, they're a little more complicated when they're conversation, because that means there's a lot of wording and you may find it a little bit complicated, right, to answer this. But Daniel is talking to Juan Carlos. Look, Daniel is talking to Juan Carlos. And Daniel is saying, Juan Carlos, a mi mamá. Notice the I in front of it. And I showed you before in my PowerPoint. And when you find a in front of the pronoun, a mi mamá, that's already telling you who the subject, the indirect object is, okay? So Daniel is asking, Juan Carlos, a mi mamá ya. What pronoun should we use for mamá? Is it me, te, le, nos, os, les? Which one? And can anybody answer what pronoun should I use for mamá?
Le.
Correcto, guys. So a mi mamá, because it's for her, a mi mamá le mandamos. Notice that the verb tells you who performed the action. Again, is the verb is telling you the subject. Mandamos. Mandamos is us, we. We sent her a postal card. Le mandamos una tarjeta postal. Very good. So now this is a more complicated sentence. The next one, Juan Carlos is responding to Daniel. And he's saying, pues just means, well, pues yo no. Well, I did not. Daniel is saying we sent her a card. But Juan Carlos is saying, well, I did not. I did not what? I did not send anything. Who is he talking about? Remember we talked about mama. So the pronoun should be who's the pronoun? The pronoun that we correcto. Who is answering?
Aline.
Aline, you are correct. Yo no le, because it's still for his mom or their mom. So because it's the same indirect object, we're still using le. Now the subject changed, right? It's not us anymore. It's yo. Yo no le. I did not send her anything. This is the number one mistake. I'm going to take note on who answered here. Because I want
Why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be me?
Because it's not me. It's not for me, the postal card. I'm performing the action. But I perform the action, I'm the subject. The pronoun agrees with the indirect object. And the indirect object is who receives this. And that would be her, ella, la mamá. And that's the number one mistake, guys. That's the mistake that I always find in the students, get confused with who performs the action and who receives it. Remember, the verb tells you who performs. But in this case, when you're doing indirect objects, you have to understand for whom. Always look for who is this action, because that's the pronoun that you're going to use for who. In this case, is mama. It has to be le. It's still the same person that we're doing this for. Now, notice it has a period here. Well, Juan Carlos is saying, well, I did not send her anything. And now there's no time, period. There's a period right here. Now it starts with a tus padres. Now the indirect object's changed. A tus padres. And it's saying bought, we bought, compramos, a tus padres. So the indirect object is tus padres. What pronoun should I use now? Because it's not mama anymore. Who wants to answer? Who is the indirect object now? Pronoun that I should use.
Would it be less?
Correcto. Who is this?
Kayla.
Kayla Cloyd. Okay, let me find you. Okay. Yes, it is less. Because it's for them. Okay. Because it's for them. So now saying a tus padres. And remember, the indirect object is for whom? A tus padres, les compramos. We bought them a recuerdo means it's a souvenir, like something from our trip. They don't need a postal card. I mean, okay, are we understanding? Now Daniel is saying, you are right, tienes razón, pero me siento mal, porque ellos ya, but I feel bad because they mandaron 5 correos electrónicos a nosotros. They sent 5 electronic emails to us. You see a nosotros here? A nosotros is telling you for who. Ellos ya. So who's the pronoun that we're going to use now? Because it's saying for us. What pronoun should I use? Here.
Nos.
Correcto, Aline. It's nos, because now they send it to us. Now I'm directing you step by step so you understand this. Now when you do your homework, you have to make sure you understand what to do, okay? Because it's important that when we look at the sentence, that's how we will do it and not make mistakes. Next one, Juan Carlos is saying, but your parents are not that way. Don't worry. No van a estar enojados. Enojados. They're not going to be mad. Tu hermana, a tu hermana. Oh, the indirect object changed. A tu hermana. They're probably buying stuff on their vacation, right? A tu hermana. ¿Qué compraste? What did you buy her yesterday? What pronoun should I use?
Le.
Correcto. Yes, who's this? Tabais? No.
Okay.
Kayla.
Kayla.
Yes, Kayla. It is le. Because it's for his sister. Okay, that's how we're going to do now. Let's look at another activity, but yeah, 2 minutes, and then I'll give you a 5-minute break, and we'll have, this is one of your homeworks. The activity was one of your homeworks. I think you had another one here that was more complicated. Well, I think that it might be more complicated for you. That's why I'm doing this, but it may not be. This is a listening activity. I don't know if I play it, will you be able to listen? Let's see. Were you able to listen to it?
No, we can't really hear it.
Okay, I know what it is. Well, this is one of your homework activities. And I need to optimize the screen for sharing.
1. Esther ofrece descuentos especiales para el vuelo. A mí.
Were you able to hear it this time?
Yes.
All right. Did you hear how at the end she said, a mí? She's giving us the indirect object, a mí. So, which one of these it says that Esther offers these special discounts for the flight? A mí. Which one has the correct pronoun? For me.
The first one?
The first one. Was it Kayla?
Yes.
Esther me ofrece descuentos. That is the correct one. So in your listening, pay attention to how she is saying what each one of these says. They're all the same except they have different pronouns, right? Nos, les, os. Different pronouns. Excuse me. But it's the same sentence. So in your listening, you'll hear at the end, for whom. Okay, let's look at the next one.
2. Esther manda los boletos por correo electrónico. A nosotros.
What she explained. The indirect object is nosotros. A nosotros.
For the first one?
So who's answering?
Alexis.
Alexis. Canon or
Royster.
Royster? Okay. A nosotros. Esther nos manda a nosotros. So, yes, nos manda. It's simple, okay? But I don't know why every time I review the listening activities, I find a lot of students having trouble listening to it. But that's how you complete the whole thing, okay? I'm gonna give you 5 minutes for break, guys, and then we'll do the next lesson. Just 5 minutes for break while I get the things ready. Okay, chicos, I'm back. We're gonna finish with our last lesson for today. Let me clear this. Okay. One more thing I wanted to tell you before we finish with this previous lesson we've had. Everybody can see my PowerPoint? Yes? Good. Thank you. It says here, puedo recomendarles. Notice how this activity, this is just, this is a textbook activity, but it's showing you how sometimes there will not be the subject at the beginning of the sentence. When you have a question like this here, you will have two verbs. In English, sometimes we have do or did, right? But those that auxiliary verb, do I, do we, or did I, or did we don't have that auxiliary verb in Spanish. So that's why there's no translation. But we use the verb puedo, okay? So puedo here is showing you, can I recommend? Puedo recomendar. And then for whom? You see les on the side, that's les is the pronoun for ellos or ellas or ustedes. So I can recommend you all something. Actually, it's a question, so it should be, can I recommend you all something? And the clerk, dependiente, is saying, hola, ¿en qué puedo? And so the answer would be servirles. Because, servirles, how can I serve you all? Servirles. Again, that's only because it's showing us how two verbs next to each other, you only attach the pronoun to the second verb, which is not conjugated. You cannot attach it to the first verb that is conjugated. Two verbs next to each other, the rule says you conjugate the first one only, and the second one is not. And so this pronoun that we're learning today, indirect object pronoun, has to be attached to the second verb that is not conjugated. And that's what it is. This says here, to the infinitive. So I'm going to move to our vocabulario. Vocabulario that we have for today, actually. We are learning, hold on, let me stop this share and get you moved to the textbook. Can everybody see my textbook now? See? Verde? See? I can see it. Great. Thank you, Frankie and Kayla. Okay, so chapter 9, our last chapter in this textbook. Yay. One more week, guys. One more week, next week, and that's it for this course. El de viaje por el Caribe. This is the title for this chapter 9. And we've already learned the vocabulario del avión last week. We learned expressions and estructura today using indirect object pronouns. A practicar are your activities to practice. Conversar are also activities to practice, but they are more speaking conversations. The lesson 2 is estructura 2, simplifying expressions. We are not doing this lesson. It's a very complicated lesson, and I see no point of using this lesson when a lot of times, you know, I have really bad results. So we're not even doing that lesson, estructura 2. We're jumping to el botel, vocabulario 2. And I'm going to show you that some of these words that we have in el hotel are going to be phrases that we're learning. But there are also other words that are important, like ascensor or elevador, cama sencilla, cama doble, hotel de 4 estrellas. In the previous vocabulario, we talked about the airport, the airplane, all the names and nouns for traveling and transportation. Well, not transportation. It was only traveling on airplane. But we're going to learn more transportation terms next week, I believe. Hotel, camas de 4 estrellas. That's our hotel, 4 stars. La llave. Recepción, recepcionista. Notice these two words are similar, but they mean two different things. person and a thing. Reserva, it's reservation, but you can also say reservación. Either way, reserva or reservación. Arreglado means neat and tidy. Cómodo, comfortable. Limpio, lujoso, privado, sucio. All of these are adjectives that we use to tell how something is. Right? We do not only need them, or we do not only use them for hotel. We can also use them for things, right? Or places like a bathroom or a bedroom. And so here are the verbs that I wanted to point out. Verbs that we have for this chapter in Vocabulario 2. Quedarse, it's a reflexive verb. Remember we learned reflexives back in chapter 5. When the verbs end in ese, you know they are reflexive verbs. Quedarse, quejarse. Now, quejarse de, in parentheses de, every time you're going to say, I am complaining about this teacher, you have to use de. If you do not use de, it doesn't have the idea of complaining. Okay? So, quejarse de, and you say quejarse de la profesora, to complain about the professor. Or quejarse de, del, if you choose to say the del hotel, del hotel, you may use, right here, you may use the textbook to say quejarse del. Instead of saying de el hotel, because hotel is masculine noun, we have to make a contraction here and say del hotel, to complain about the hotel. Quejarse del hotel. Registrarse is also a reflexive verb, okay? You can say me registré. Notice that registré with an accent on the e is I did. Me registré, me registré. En el hotel. I registered in the hotel. Me registré en el hotel. It's not hotel, it's hotel because the H doesn't sound in Spanish. Now, reservar is not a reflexive verb, but subirse is a reflexive verb. So we learned subirse al, instead of saying a él, like I did before, like I showed you before, plus el avión, because avión is masculine noun, we make a contraction, as we learned back in Spanish 1, and we say al avión. You have a masculine noun. Subirse al avión. You can also say subirse. You can also say, I got on the elevator. Me subí al elevador. Or ascensor is the other word that we're learning in this chapter. Me subí al elevador. Or al ascensor. I got on the elevator. Me subí. Okay, conjugation past tense. Me subí. I got on. Me subí en el elevador. These are just a few verbs that I wanted to point out. Now, vocabulario, like I said, is not just one word. Vocabulario are several sentences in this Vocabulario 2. This Vocabulario 2 is showing sentences, whole phrases. So I'm going to ask students to read, and I'm going to take participation to read this whole conversation. I need students to read, and I have 12 participants. 12 participants. I want 12 participants to participate reading a box or not a box out. What is this? I don't know, these circles, what do you call them? I don't even know what you call them. But I want people to participate reading this. Please read it. Someone to start.
The one that says muy buenas.
Read one of those. What do you call them? Blurbs, or what do you call them? I don't know.
Comment boxes, I don't know.
A comment box, yeah. Just read one, and then somebody else reads necesitamos, and then somebody else reads the bottom one.
Okay. Muy buenas tardes. ¿En qué puedo servirles?
Bien, Alexis Royster. One more point. Next person.
Necesitamos un cuarto para 2 personas.
Gracias, Kayla. And then the next person says, somebody else. Aline, Brendan, Frankie. Try it. I'm not giving you a grade for pronunciation.
Sí, con cada duel, por favor, vamos a
Quedarnos.
los 3 noches aquí.
Gracias, Kendall. Well, that was Kendall, right?
Yes.
Okay, Kendall. Next person. I don't know who was talking before. Read this part. The clerk.
¿Desean ustedes un baño privado?
Bien, Tobias. Where are you, Tobias? Oh, here you are. ¿Desean un baño privado? He asked. And the man is saying, who else is answering? Next person. Should be the top one. Come on, I'm giving an extra point participation today.
Sí. Sí, y con ducha.
Gracias, ¿verdad, Alexis?
Yes.
Okay, sí, con ducha. She wants a private bathroom with a shower. Seems silly, right, to ask this at a hotel. But let me tell you, there are some places called hostels. I don't know if you've ever been to a hostel, but there's a lot of hostels in a lot of other Hispanic countries where the bathrooms are shared and they're not in your bedroom. They are shared with other bedrooms. So they're saying, no, we want our own bathroom. Okay, next person, por favor.
Por favor, queremos un cuarto que no dé a la calle. Hay mucho ruido por aquí.
It says calle, okay? Calle means the street. Double L is calle. And we're going to learn that next week when we talked about location. Gracias, Aline, right? That was Aline. Okay, here, somebody else. Oh. I'll read this one. Sí, señora, por el tránsito. We still have another box, I think, in the next. This is a conversation at the hotel, this couple, okay? So here's another box. So somebody else wants to do one.
¿Tiene aire acondicionado el cuarto?
Correcto, Kayla. Tiene aire acondicionado. You understand what it's asking, right? Air conditioner. And again, it's because in a lot of places, they may not have air conditioner, depending on what kind of hotel it is. Next one. Who wants to read this one?
Sí, señor. Todos los cuartos lo tienen. El Hotel Nacional de Cuba es de 4 estrellas.
Very good, Maris. This is a 4-star. This is vocabulary that we're learning. A 4-star hotel. Okay, 4 estrellas. Okay, let's see. It doesn't want me to move on because I need to get it. So now it's time to ask about who's doing this? Who's reading this one?
¿Cuánto cuesta el cuarto?
¿Cuánto cuesta, Alexis Royster? Yeah, we gotta know how much, right? And so let's see what he says. Somebody else to read it? Come on. I want to give more points.
$120 al día, señor.
Alexis, 120, not 120. En español. Not 122. What is that in Spanish?
That's a great question.
120. What's that in Spanish?
120, or is it 120?
Yes, 120, Maris. 120. Good. $120. I don't know. They're asking me money in dollars. I think it's because in Cuba they use dólares for tourists only. They only use dollars for tourists. They cannot use any other currency. So, gracias por leer. Thank you for reading. So this vocabulario of reading, it's now, like I said, now is the vocabulario in the hotel. We're doing vocabulary in the hotel. So let's see how we do with one of the activities. When we're learning vocabulary is very easy, right? Because we can just memorize looking at the pictures and we understand what we're talking about. But the important thing to know is learning the definitions. In your exam, I want to do one of your activities. In your exam, you may have, I believe, I'm trying to remember, your exam may have activities like this one, like a conversation. And when you have conversations in a question for the exam, it's a little more difficult because you have to answer with the whole phrase, and it has to be, the words have to be correct. So we need to make sure we understand how to keep this in your activities. Let's look at one activity here and see how we do. All right, so they're giving us the yeah, let's see if that one's a good one. Well, we'll look at the bottom. Yeah, let's look at the bottom first. Activity, this is a conversation activity. ¿Para cuándo necesita la reserva? So it's important that we understand the words that they're asking. And then and then when you're answering, you should use phrases, not just one word, okay? So this activity here, it is a conversation, and what you're supposed to do is find a person to act like your receptionist and your tourist person, like we just did the conversation before. And so you ask the question and the other person responds. But we're gonna do this one that is easier right now. So first thing to do when we have a word bank is understand what they mean. Arreglados, ascensor, cuartos, doble, privado, quedarse, recepcionista, reserva, sencillas. So what do you think? We know the definitions for all these words. I think they're all of them easy, except maybe there are a few words here that you may not know what they mean. This, for example, the verb quedarse, which I just showed you before. It's a reflexive verb. Okay, quedarse. This here, arreglados, is an adjective, and it has to do how things look. But the rest of them are nouns. Well, privado means also an adjective, but it's just like an English. Another adjective, sencillas. Notice that sencillas is feminine and it's plural. So whenever we use this adjective, has to agree with the noun that is feminine and plural. Whenever we use the private adjective here, privado, has to be with a masculine singular noun. And this other adjective here, arreglados, has to be describing a noun that is plural and masculine. Good? Things to pay attention before we start the activity. That's good. Okay, it says, los estudiantes llegan al Hotel Nacional de Cuba. Un estudiante habla con él. Una estudiante habla con él. Who is she talking to? That cannot be an adjective, right? She's talking to someone. So what is the noun that goes here?
Receptionista.
Correcto. So that would be recepcionista. Who's answering?
Kayla.
Thank you, Kayla.
As L.
Because recepcionista, even though it ends in feminine and a, it's not. It's a noun that can be used with both masculine or feminine. The receptionist. That's what it means, and it doesn't have to be feminine noun. Okay. I'm sorry I didn't explain that. Let me make this smaller. I'm trying to make this smaller, but yes, recepcionista means receptionist, and it can be feminine or masculine. It can be both ways. Oh. Do not know how to move this so you can see the whole thing here. Oh, well. Okay. All right, so we're using recepcionista. Habla con el recepcionista is right here. Recepcionista. That's the answer for that one. And who answered? I didn't even know. Make a point.
That was me, Kayla.
Kayla, okay. All right, so el recepcionista le dice, he tells her or him, I don't know who's the subject, que tiene una, he has a, tiene una, notice it's saying feminine, so una what? What does he have? Una
Reserva.
Una reserva, correcto. Is this Alexis?
Yes.
Una reserva. He has a reservation. Okay, he has a reservation. Número 3. It says, van a, they're going to. Van a 2 días antes, 2 days before they start the expedition. Van a, what are they going to do? On that one? On that one. Van a, what are they going to do? It has to be an action, right? It cannot be an adjective like I pointed before, and it cannot be a noun because it's an action. Correcto. Who is answering?
Alexis.
Alexis Royster. You see, this is how we start getting this done, okay? Looking and paying attention to these things that I'm saying, you know. If they're going to do something, there has to be an action. Well, the only verb we have here is quedarse, right? Okay, next part. Número 4. Someone is saying, ask for 2 to what? Pide 2, uno con cama y otro con 2 camas. What is he asking for? What are we learning in this topic? What's the topic in this lesson? The topic is hotel. So what are they asking for?
Rooms.
Rooms. What's rooms in Spanish?
Cuartos.
Cuartos, correcto. Who's answering?
Alexis.
Alexis, let me tell you. Cuartos means rooms. We learned that when we learned the house names and items back in Spanish 1. But cuartos can also mean quarters, okay? Maybe that's why you got a little bit confused there, or somebody else was doubting which word to use. But cuartos can also mean quarters, okay? Cuartos, but in this case, we're talking about rooms, so the correct word is cuartos because it means rooms, okay? It doesn't mean quarters in this case. So 2 rooms with uno con cama. What kind of bed? Cama.
Doble.
Doble, correcto. Who's that?
Mary's.
Mary's. Doble, cama doble. We want to bed. Used to be, I remember when I was young, long ago, used to be rooms like that. Now, all the rooms, you know, they have a full bed or a queen bed, but used to be rooms with where you had to ask for a double bed. Cama doble. Y uno con 2 camas. 2 camas, if you have 2 kids, if I have a boy and a girl, so you would ask for camas. What kind of camas?
Sencillas.
Correcto. Which sencillas means what? What does sencilla mean? What do you think it means?
2 beds.
2 beds, but what kind? They're not double bed. Double people. Twin beds, yes. It means twin beds, okay? Sencillas. So, número 7, and who was that? Last person.
Kayla.
Kayla. Okay. So, the last part, it says, toman el, they take, instead of, well, yeah, they take. It shouldn't be take, because in English we don't say we take. Well, we do take. In GCB, we either take the stairs or we take the
Ascensor.
Ascensor. Who is that?
Areas.
There is. Remember, ascensor can also be called elevador. Okay, like in English, but in this chapter they're just saying ascensor, but it's both ways. So they take the elevators, toman el elevador, or we can also say they get on the elevator, se suben al elevador y llegan a sus cuartos. Make a note on that. Okay, los dos cuartos tienen baño. What kind of baño?
Privado.
Privado. Who's answering?
Oh, it was me.
It was you, but who's you?
Alexis, I'm sorry.
Alexis. Okay, Alexis. Baño privado. Alexis, I don't have no more room for your points. You have a lot of points.
Okay, I thought.
No. I'm just saying that as a joke. Cuando llegan a los cuartos, están. How are the rooms? Cuando llegan a los cuartos, when they arrive to the rooms, ¿cómo están los cuartos?
Arreglados.
Arreglados. Marys?
Mm-hmm.
Arreglados. They are arreglados. What is the definition that the book says? Because arreglados can mean they're neat, they're fixed, or they are, I think I can only use them for neat or fixed.
Tidy.
Tight, is this what it says? Okay. See, I don't even use that word. I didn't even know what that word meant. But also neat. Arreglados also means neat. Is that the same thing as tidy? Is that what it also means, the definition?
Yeah, they're the same.
Okay. See, I've never knew that word in English. But it's saying that the rooms are neat, okay? But when you say fixed, if you use it as fix, as a verb to fix something, you say arregla or arreglado. This is fixed. You can say arreglado. This is arreglado, okay? But we're not talking about fixing here. We're talking about neat. Todos están contentos. Everybody's happy. Okay? ¿Preguntas? This is all I have for today. ¿Hay preguntas? ¿No hay preguntas? Rojo, verde, sí hay preguntas. ¿No? Guys, next week will be our last lesson. And we're going to be learning about location of places. And we're going to learn about giving commands, negative commands. I just showed you in this PowerPoint affirmative commands. When you tell your dog, sit, you say sienta, siéntate. Or you tell them, or you tell your a command or instructions to someone. But we're going to talk about negative commands or negative instructions, like no hables, or no digas, right? We give a lot of negative commands. We do a lot of negative commands. So we're going to learn negative commands, and the steps for negative commands are not that easy. I'm giving you a PowerPoint in Blackboard so you can review it, but I'm going to explain it also next lesson, next Monday. That'll be our last lesson together, because then we're going on vacation, right? And you'll have your final exam, and that's it. But I'll wait for you here again next Monday, and I'll be in Zoom again next week, next Monday. Nos vemos, chicos. Adios.
Adios.
Don't forget the cultural discussion this Friday.
Did you take attendance at the beginning?
I did not. Hold on. Well, I have the statistics from Zoom. Zoom tells me who was here.
Okay.
But yeah, I know it's 12 people, but the Zoom tells me who was here, because it gives me all statistics when you join in and when you logged off. Okay?
Okay.
I'll do that right now before I forget. I don't want to hold you up. Adios.